Have you ever met someone who was clearly in their 50s or even 60s, but somehow looked younger than people 10 or 15 years below them? And I'm not talking about expensive creams, cosmetic procedures, or trying to freeze yourself in your 30s. Some people simply seem to carry age differently. Their face looks calmer. Their eyes look clearer. Their movements have a certain energy. Even the way they speak can make them seem younger. And here's the interesting part. It may have less to do with trying to look young than you think. Because the way you handle stress, the way you sleep, the way you move, the way you protect your body, and even the way you relate to the things you cannot control may quietly determine how quickly age shows itself on you. And this is where Stoicism becomes surprisingly relevant, because the Stoics were never obsessed with looking young. They were obsessed with learning how to live well. And sometimes, the person who spends less time fighting life ends up looking like life has been fighting them less. So let's look at 5 deeper reasons some people appear younger than their actual age. And the 5th one may change the way you think about aging altogether. 1. You don't carry stress everywhere you go. Let's start with something you cannot see immediately: stress. Not the occasional stressful day. I'm talking about the kind of stress that follows you everywhere. You wake up thinking about yesterday. You eat while worrying about tomorrow. You drive while replaying an argument. You lie in bed thinking about money, relationships, work, family, mistakes you made 10 years ago, and things that haven't even happened yet. Your body may be sitting in a chair, but your mind is fighting battles all day. And eventually, that inner state begins to show. Research increasingly points to a relationship between chronic psychological stress and biological aging. One study examining cumulative stress found an association with accelerated biological age, while resilience factors such as emotion regulation and self-control appeared to moderate some of those relationships. And newer research has also found measurable effects of chronic psychological stress on skin function, including changes associated with skin texture and fine lines. That doesn't mean stress automatically gives you wrinkles. Life is more complicated than that. Genetics matter. Sun exposure matters, sleep matters, nutrition matters, your environment matters. But there is something important here. The way you respond to stress matters too. And this is exactly where the Stoics were ahead of their time. Epictetus repeatedly focused on the difference between what happens and the judgment we place upon what happens. Someone insults you, that's an event. Your mind says, "How dare they disrespect me? I need to prove myself. I can't let this go." That's your interpretation. Someone doesn't call you back. That's an event. Your mind says, "They don't value me. Something must be wrong. I need to know why." That's your interpretation. The event is one thing. The mental war you build around the event is another. And that mental war can become a lifestyle. Think about someone who has spent 20 years being angry at everyone who disappointed them. They may not realize it, but they are carrying thousands of emotional arguments that nobody else can see. Now compare that person with someone who has learned to say, "I don't control what people do. I control what I do next." That's not weakness, that's psychological discipline. And there is something visibly different about a person who is not constantly fighting invisible battles. Their face can appear more relaxed. Their posture can look lighter. Their eyes can look less exhausted. Their conversations can feel calmer. They don't have to force youthfulness. They simply aren't broadcasting the same level of internal tension. So if people constantly tell you that you look younger than your age, one possibility is that you have learned something many people never learn. Not every problem deserves your nervous system. Not every insult deserves a response. Not every disappointment deserves a week of emotional suffering. And not every thought deserves to become a belief. That brings us to the 2nd reason. Because even if you manage your stress well, there is another part of aging that happens while you are doing absolutely nothing. You're asleep. 2. You actually know how to rest. There is a strange contradiction in modern life. People say they want to look younger, but they sleep like they are trying to outrun tomorrow. They stay up late. They scroll, they answer messages, they watch one more episode, they worry, they wake up tired. Then they spend the next day trying to compensate with caffeine. And eventually they wonder why they look exhausted. Your body does not care how motivated you are. It still needs recovery. Research has found meaningful associations between poor sleep quality and visible signs of skin aging. In one study, good sleepers had lower intrinsic skin aging scores and better skin barrier recovery than poor sleepers. That doesn't mean one bad night suddenly ages your face. But chronic poor sleep is another story. Your body needs periods of recovery. And this is another place where Stoicism gives us an interesting lesson. The Stoics were not teaching people to work themselves into the ground. They were teaching disciplined living. There is a difference. Discipline isn't doing everything. Discipline is knowing what matters enough to do consistently. And sometimes the disciplined thing is to stop, to put the phone down, to finish the day, to allow your mind to become quiet, to sleep. Many people think rest is something they earn after accomplishing everything. But you will never accomplish everything. There will always be another email, another bill, another problem, another person who needs something, another unfinished task. If your permission to rest depends on the world becoming completely quiet, you may never rest. The Stoic understands something different. You have responsibilities, but you are not required to mentally carry every responsibility every minute of the day. There is a time to act, and there is a time to recover. And that recovery can affect much more than your mood. It can affect how you move, how you think, how you react, how you communicate. And yes, potentially how healthy and resilient your skin appears over time. So maybe the person who looks younger isn't doing something extraordinary. Maybe they're simply not constantly exhausted. They aren't trying to squeeze 28 hours out of a 24-hour day. They understand that the body has limits, and they respect those limits. But now we reach something even more interesting, because rest alone isn't enough. There are people who sleep reasonably well and still seem to age quickly. And there are others who keep moving well into their later years and somehow seem to retain something youthful. That brings us to number 3. 3. You keep your body moving. Look at someone who is 70 but still walks with purpose. They get out of a chair without struggling. They carry themselves upright. They move their arms naturally. They walk at a reasonable pace. They don't look like they're negotiating with their own body every time they move. Now compare that with someone much younger who spends most of the day sitting. The difference can be striking. Movement changes the way we experience age, and research suggests that regular physical activity can support skin health through mechanisms including blood flow, metabolic function, and stress regulation. Reviews have also reported associations between regular exercise and healthier skin structure and appearance. But I don't want you to misunderstand this. I'm not telling you that you need to become a bodybuilder. You don't need to run marathons. You don't need to spend 2 hours every day in a gym. The deeper principle is movement. Use the body you have. Walk, stretch, lift something appropriate for your ability. Climb stairs, garden, swim, cycle, dance. Do something that reminds your body that it is still meant to move. Because there is a psychological side to this too. When you stop moving, life can become smaller. You go from the bed to the chair to the car to the office back to the chair, and eventually you start thinking of your limitations as your identity. The Stoics had a different orientation. They emphasized living according to nature and practicing virtue through action. You don't become resilient by reading about resilience. You practice it. You don't become disciplined by talking about discipline. You practice it, and the same principle applies physically. Your body responds to what you repeatedly ask of it. Now here's something fascinating. Exercise doesn't only change the body, it can also change your relationship with the body. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is getting old. You start seeing yourself as someone who still has things to do. That distinction matters, because age is a number, but your daily behavior is a message you send to your brain about who you are. I'm too old for this. I'm slowing down. People my age don't do that. Or, I can still improve. I can still become stronger. I can still learn. I can still move. The second mindset doesn't stop aging. Nothing stops aging, but it can change how you inhabit the years you have. And that brings us to number 4. Because there is something outside your body that may be quietly adding years to your appearance every time you step outside. The sun. 4. You understand that nature has consequences. This one is less philosophical and more brutally biological. The sun is not your enemy, but ultraviolet radiation is not harmless either. Repeated exposure to ultraviolet radiation is a major contributor to photoaging. It can contribute to wrinkles, pigmentation changes, loss of skin tone, and other visible changes associated with prematurely aged skin. Dermatologists refer to this accumulated damage as photoaging, and the deeper mechanism is fascinating. UV radiation can increase oxidative stress and activate processes that contribute to the breakdown of collagen and other structural components of the skin. In other words, sometimes what makes one person look noticeably older isn't simply their chronological age. It's the accumulated history written into their skin. Years of exposure, years of habits, years of neglect. And this connects surprisingly well with Stoic thinking. The Stoics accepted reality. They didn't believe you could negotiate with nature. You cannot tell gravity to stop. You cannot tell winter not to come. You cannot command your body never to age. But accepting reality doesn't mean becoming passive. It means responding intelligently to reality. If the sun damages your skin, you protect yourself. If poor sleep makes you feel terrible, you improve your sleep. If smoking damages your health, you stop. If constant stress is destroying your peace, you change the way you respond to your circumstances. Acceptance is not surrender. That's a distinction people often miss. A Stoic doesn't say, whatever happens, happens. A Stoic says, this is the reality I'm dealing with. What is within my control now? That's a much stronger question, and it changes how you live. Because the person who looks younger may simply have spent years making fewer choices that accelerate visible aging. They weren't necessarily obsessed with looking young. They were simply taking care of what they had. And that brings us to the fifth reason. This is the one that goes deeper than skin. 5. You haven't made aging your identity. This may be the most important one. Some people start getting old psychologically before they get old physically. They turn 50 and say, well, I'm 50 now, and suddenly everything becomes an excuse. I'm too old to start. I'm too old to learn. I'm too old to change. I'm too old to make new friends. I'm too old to travel. I'm too old to start exercising. I'm too old to fall in love. I'm too old to begin again. Notice what happened. The number on the calendar became a prison, and once you accept that identity, your behavior starts following it. You stop exploring. You stop challenging yourself. You stop learning. You stop taking care of yourself. You stop expecting anything new from life. And eventually, the outside begins to reflect the inside. Not because your thoughts magically change your facial structure, but because your beliefs influence your behavior, and your behavior compounds. This is where Stoicism becomes most powerful. Marcus Aurelius wasn't interested in pretending that age, illness, loss, or death didn't exist. He understood that everything changes. People change, bodies change, circumstances change, you change. The goal was never to escape that reality. The goal was to live well inside it. That is a completely different approach to aging. You don't need to look 25. You need to remain alive to your own life. There is a difference. A 55-year-old who is curious, active, emotionally stable, and engaged with life can have a presence that feels remarkably youthful, not childish, not desperate. Youthful in the best sense. Curious, open, energetic, present. And that is something cosmetic products cannot manufacture. Because you can smooth a forehead, you cannot manufacture curiosity. You can change your hairstyle. You cannot manufacture peace. You can dress younger. You cannot manufacture vitality. And you can try to hide your age. But eventually, the real question becomes, what kind of person are you becoming as you age? That is the question the Stoics would probably care about much more. Because the objective isn't to defeat time. You can't. The objective is to become wiser while time passes. Stronger without becoming hard. Calmer without becoming passive. Older without becoming bitter. Experienced without becoming cynical. And perhaps most importantly, grateful without becoming complacent. So why do some people look younger than their age? Now let's bring everything together. Maybe the person who looks younger isn't hiding some magical secret. Maybe they have simply accumulated different habits. They manage stress instead of feeding it. They respect sleep instead of constantly sacrificing it. They keep moving instead of surrendering to inactivity. They protect themselves from unnecessary environmental damage. And they refuse to make their age their identity. Some of that is biology. Some of it is genetics. Some of it is circumstance. And some of it is behavior. Research does not justify claiming that Stoicism itself makes someone's face younger. What it does show is that stress, sleep, physical activity, and other lifestyle factors are connected with processes involved in health and skin aging. Stoicism gives us a framework for approaching those factors differently. It teaches you to separate what you control from what you don't. You cannot control your birth date. You cannot control every genetic factor. You cannot stop time. But you can control whether you spend today worrying about yesterday. You can control whether you move your body. You can control whether you give yourself time to recover. You can control whether you protect what you have. And you can control the story you tell yourself about getting older. That last one may be the most powerful, because there is nothing sad about getting older. Getting older means you survived years that somebody else never got to experience. You've seen people come and go. You've made mistakes. You've learned things. You've lost things. You've gained things. You've probably become someone your younger self couldn't have imagined. So don't spend the next 20 years trying desperately to become the person you were 20 years ago. Become someone your future self will respect. That is a much better goal. And perhaps that's the real secret behind people who seem to age differently. They aren't fighting time every morning when they look in the mirror. They've made peace with time. And strangely enough, that peace may be one of the things that makes them look so alive. So the next time somebody tells you that you look younger than your age, don't immediately think about your genes, your skincare routine, or whatever compliment you think you just received. Ask yourself something deeper. What am I doing differently that allows me to carry my years this way? Because looking young is temporary, but learning how to age well? That's a skill worth keeping for the rest of your life. If this video gave you something to think about, don't just click away. Tell me in the comments, what is one thing you believe has helped you age well? Your mindset, your habits, your sleep, exercise, stress management, or something else? I'd genuinely like to know. And if you want more videos about Stoicism, self-mastery, emotional strength, and learning how to live better as the years go by, subscribe to the channel. Like this video if you found the message valuable. And remember, you cannot control the fact that you're getting older, but you can control the person you're becoming while you do. And that is where the real work begins.